YouTube, man, it's your boy Action Jackson. And in today's video, I'm going to be talking about Christian Parker's hiring in more depth, why I like the hire, why it's going to work, and why the Dallas Cowboys need to help out Christian Parker in order for this hire to work. So before we hop into the video, I would appreciate if you guys would like the video, subscribe if you're new, comment and share my video with anyone who you think will enjoy my content. Hopping straight into it, I really like the way in which Brian Schottenheimer led this search, right? It was a true search. It wasn't one of these hirings that the Dallas Cowboys normally do where they already have a DC in mind, so they knock out the Rooney Rule, and then they just go ahead and they announce who they want to be either their head coach or their defensive coordinator. We had it was reported at least 9 different interviews with defensive players or defensive coaches, right? And most of those defensive coaches having a secondary mindset. For me, the process was again lengthy, but then not only that, we didn't really have a sure beat on who they wanted to hire. I felt like for the Dallas Cowboys, what Steve and Jerry in that front office more than likely wanted, I think they wanted Jim Leonard. They didn't get Jim Leonard. I think Jim Leonard, he's going to come into the division, but I think he's going to be a DC for the New York Giants under John Harbaugh because John Harbaugh coached him. So did Brian Scheimer when they were both with the Jets. Jim Leonard was a safety, played in the NFL. So I think he'll go to the Giants. I don't think he's coming to Dallas, obviously, right? So then you had Devontae Jones, who it was reported publicly that he impressed the Dallas Cowboys, had a really good interview, and then Christian Parker interviewed. So did Jonathan Gannon. So it was really like 4 candidates they came down to out of the 9. But Christian Parker ultimately was the one who ended up winning the job. Now, everything that I see from Christian Parker is great in terms of we're going to get to his coaching history in a little bit, but let's just talk about the players that he crossed paths with in coaching, right? So when he was a DB's coach for the Denver Broncos, when Pat Surtain got drafted there, understanding, yes, Pat Surtain was already going to be a really good player coming into the league out of Alabama. Most people who scouted him or most people who saw him play understood how well he was going to be into the NFL. But the way in which that Christian Parker was able to hone in on his skills and refine his game to make him a true pro made all the world of difference for Patrick Surtain. Patrick Surtain, tweeted out when it was broken that the Dallas Cowboys hired Christian Parker. He quote tweeted this tweet by Tom Pelissero by saying, "Well deserved, go crazy, CP." And then Cooper DeJean, the most recent job that Christian Parker had a part in, again, refining Cooper DeJean's skills along with Quinyon Mitchell. Cooper DeJean was, being like, man, they got a great one. Wouldn't be the player I am without Coach CP. So I think that the Dallas Cowboys, remember, they had a few prerequisites that they wanted from their DC. They wanted them to be a teacher. They wanted them somebody that can relate their scheme to the players and communicate it in different ways. They also wanted their DC to not only be, they want them to have a scheme, but they also want their scheme to adapt to the players that they have on their roster. They don't want to have, again, round holes, but trying to fit square pegs into them, right? So what's that analogy in terms of what we already had last year? Don't have pressman corners like Savon Revel Jr. When he was getting scouted at ECU, that's what his greatest strength was a bump and run corner and to play in your hip pocket and to follow you everywhere that you went, right? Carrying routes across the field, things like that. Same with Deron Bland, same with Trayvon Diggs. Those are what those guys specialize at, is pressman corner type of situations, right? You can't play in 15, 20 yards off the ball like Matt Eberflus was doing last year. So that's something that we're going to need to possibly change. But I like that the Dallas Cowboys are trying to do that, and I like how with the offense it was like that. It was, hey, Clayton Adams came out, Connor Riley came out, wide receivers coach, running backs coach. Hey, we're not going to have these players play besides themselves, and we're not going to have them be something that they aren't. We're going to adapt to who they are once they come into the building. The offense had that structure last year. It's a shame that we didn't have that for the defensive side of the football, but that's why for me the Dallas Cowboys have two things, right? The number one thing that when Christian Parker comes in here, I need him to have full autonomy on this roster on the defensive side of the football. By what I mean by that is especially the coaching staff. I need him to come in here. I need him to pick his DB's coach, his secondary coach, his linebacking coach, his pass game coordinator coach, his defensive line coach, cornerback coach. I need all of that I need Christian Parker to pick that out and have him put together the best roster that he can, of the best players and the best people at those positions. We just want the best guys in each position, and I'm fine with that when it comes to Christian Parker. I need him to have full autonomy, and I need him to have full control on who he brings in on the defensive side of the football in terms of coaching, right? Now, for the players, do I want him picking players? Not necessarily, but what I do want him to do is I want him to go to Will McClay, go to the scouting team, go to Steven. I need him to say, look, number one, I need him to speak up, Christian Parker as well. But I need him to go in here saying, look, this is what I want from my player: height, measurables, character, background, what he was already doing at this school. I need him to know this. I need him to understand this. He has to have been doing this in college for me to feel like he can come over to the next level and play adequate football. And the second thing that I need the Dallas Cowboys to do, aside from Christian Parker having say on his defensive staff, and then also asking and demanding the type of players that he wants on this roster. What I also want the Dallas Cowboys to then do is to take that list and fill out the holes in which we have on this defensive side of the football. Because for me, it does not matter how smart or how great Christian Parker can be if we don't bring in the adequate talent. Christian Parker can be the next great mind. He can be the next Mike McDonald, who is the head coach for the Seattle Seahawks, right? We can have the next best DC, but it doesn't matter who we have. He can be shades of Vic Fangio, Brian Flores, Steve Spagnuolo, prime Big Belichick. But if you don't bring in any adequate talent to the defense side of the football, it doesn't matter, because we'll never get to truly maximize his talents and his mind here if we just bring in a bunch of crap, in which what the Dallas Cowboys like to do. They like to feed the offense five-star gourmet meals, but want to give the defense Lunchables, right? And the first time that we finally get a five-star meal, we want to trade it away for nothing. So, again, the Dallas Cowboys are going to have to do their part, right? They have to maximize on this hire. They have to participate in free agency. They're going to have to go get some free agents and some guys that were actually dudes on their prior teams before coming to Dallas. So if you got to spend a couple dollars to go get a Khalil Mack, to go get a Trey Hendrickson, to trade for Max Crosby, to trade for Minka Fitzpatrick, whatever the case might be, let's go get it done. If we got to go after Nakobe Dean, who Christian Parker might really like and wants him to be his linebacker for this defense to pair up with Overshown, let's go ahead and let's do it. So that's what I like so far, and that's what the Dallas Cowboys are going to have to do with a guy like Christian Parker. Now, let's talk about his coaching background. Let's mainly talk about his NFL coaching background. He was the defensive quality control coach in Green Bay for the Packers between 2019 and 2020. That's in that window. That's where Jair Alexander was an All-Pro corner. And for the Denver Broncos, he was the defensive backs coach under Vic Fangio and the subsequent coach known for developing Patrick Surtain Jr., right, or PS2, from 2021 to 2023. So with him being there in those 3 years, he, worked under different coordinators. Some of the coordinators that he worked under were Pednett, it was Vic Fangio, it was Ejiro Evero, it was Vance Joseph, and then Vic Fangio again. And with him being with Denver for those amount of years, he was able to turn around that defense, turn around that secondary, and they were able to play really good football. Justin Simmons was another, again, a free safety that I wanted the Dallas Cowboys to go after in 2024. He even was an endorsement on Christian Parker saying this was a really good hire and that it was really going to be good for the Dallas Cowboys to bring in a coach like that. So, quick story real quick about Christian Parker. When Christian Parker was last there in 2023, Vic Fangio left Denver being the head coach, and he went over to Miami, right? And he was part of that where a lot of the Miami Dolphins players were saying, hey, this is a really good team, but Vic Fangio, he's an a-hole. There's nobody on the staff that can relate to us and that can, relay what Vic Fangio wants us to do, right? And it was a really tough time for Vic Fangio to coach that defense. Just behind the scenes, they played on the field really well. They were a damn good defense. We had trouble playing them in that year when we went to South Beach to go play them. So while that happened, Vic Fangio got a promotion, or promotion by basically a better job, he went over to the Philadelphia Eagles, and he demanded that he would get Christian Parker. Because he was like, man, I need you, because in Miami, Christian Parker wasn't there in Miami to relate that scheme to the Miami Dolphins. Because probably if Christian Parker was there in Miami, maybe Vic Fangio stays there maybe a little bit longer, but it didn't happen. He went over to Philadelphia, and the rest is history, right? So, but Christian Parker went over there. So after developing, having a part with Jair Alexander 2019, 2020 in Green Bay, then being the DBs coach in Denver, helping out Patrick Surtain and what they had back there, Justin Simmons, stuff like that. Then leaving there to go to Philadelphia to be the pass game coordinator and developing guys like Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. That solidified his resume right there, and that's why he is where he is today. But again, I really love the way in which the Dallas Cowboys went about this hire. I do believe they got the best hire. And then third, I feel like if the Dallas Cowboys want to parlay this into something that they want to make this a true contender, they have to add subsequent pieces on the defensive side of the football for us to go far this year moving forward. So that's about it for the video. Hope you guys have a nice day. Stay safe, stay blessed. Bye.